you, Pam.
Oh, welcome. Okay, so I've hit the record button. That is good. So, okay, welcome everyone. So, how is everyone this evening?
Good.
We're good? Okay. So, we're come to the end of our first series. More is coming up. We'll be continuing to meet and have classes. So, I hope you'll have classes with me after Thanksgiving, and I'll do a preview of what is coming up. So tonight we are doing right angle weave, and let me just switch cameras here. Indy is being Indy, and he's into everything, so he may even photobomb the beadboard here. So what we're doing is we're going to learn right angle weave, and we're going to do it by doing a pendant, and it's a very simple pendant. It's using size 8 seed beads at the back. So we're going to create a mesh of beads. It's not very big. And once we have that done, we're going to embellish it. So right angle weave is what I call a foundation stitch. It is the basis for a lot of designs. I'll just move that out of the way. You probably have seen something similar to this. A lot of people call this X's and O's. It's right angle weave. And we're going to be doing something like this after Thanksgiving though, but that's right angle weave. This is also right angle weave. The term right angle weave comes to the path of the thread. In other words, it's always making a turn. I'm going to zoom in on this. If you notice, there are no threads going through the open parts. Okay, so you can see here, there's no threads going through it. The threads are always going at a right angle, so they're never going straight ahead. So, and that's where the term right angle weave comes in. It has nothing to do with the placement of beads. It's the path of the thread. If you find you're going through the gaps, then it's not critical, but that's an error. Same as here. This one isn't a good example where the holes are, but you can see that the mesh is actually not covered in threads, but it does allow you to do embellishing on it. Same here. In this case, it's a little bit more obvious because we're using squares. And then embellishing it as well. I have another example. Where did it go? Here we go. Okay, this is what I call my tic-tac-tila. And it's the same thing, where I started with a mesh of beads, very shiny, so it's hard to see. And then once I got the mesh done, I embellished it with some size 11 beads, which is just in between there. And these are tila beads, 2-hole tila beads. And so it's a great bead technique that you can then embellish and do all kinds of other things with us. So to get started, let's just zoom this out. To get started, you don't need a whole lot. We're going to use some size 8 seed beads. We're going to use, and I'm going to do a swap out. So when I do the swap out, this will be the color we're using. We're going to use some size 11 seed beads and some size 15s. So you're going to be able to use all 3 sizes, plus we're going to use some 4mm fire polish glass beads. Now, this is where you can do some change ups. So you could do 4mm stone beads. You could do round beads, which are called drucks. Here we go. So these are using drucks. They're purely round. There's no facets there. So you could use 4mm pearls, stone beads, anything else. The fire polish have little facets on them. This is an etched bead. It's really quite pretty. The camera does not pick up all the subtle colors in it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. The only other thing you need is a jump ring, I use a large jump ring and something to put your beadwork on. So I'm just going to set these aside, and I have simply beaded some thread onto a needle. I'm using 1G, but you can use any thread with this. It's not got a lot of tension. And to start off with, I'm going to be using this blue turquoise rainbow color, which is really, really pretty. So, any questions so far? Feel free to interrupt, ask questions. I'm just going to put some out. Okay, so to get started, I am using a fair length of thread, about a wingspan. It can be a little awkward to add thread because with this, you do create, because we're using beads, you do have quite a bit of open space, which can make it really tough to weave in thread without it being seen. So to get started, we're just going to pick up 4 beads. Okay, just like that. Take this back so you can see a little bit clearer. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to take it down to about, within about, oh, that's about 6 inches from here.
I'm going to get lost here.
Okay.
What size are they?
The
those
beads?
4. Yeah, those 4.
Are size 8 seed beads.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
these
you.
are size 8 topos. I've also got a question from Inez about the thread. So 1G is not like fireline at all. Fireline and thread are 2 very different animals. Your beading thread is going to have some stretch. Fireline is actually it's a braided fishing thread. It's not actually thread at all. It is a braided nylon, for the lack of a better word, thread. A little bit harder to cut, but for something like this, thread will work just fine. Okay. I've had a question here. How do I record? I'm not sure if you can. This is being recorded, and Joanna will be sending everybody the link. That's okay. So Joanna will be sending you a copy of this, so which will make it easier for you to follow along with after the fact too. And it really is recording. So, okay, so what we're going to do, we've got 4 beads. I've taken it down to about, 6 inches, 8 inches or so. I always do a little extra. And what I'm going to do now is just tie it. And I'm going to do a surgeon's knot. Let me explain what a surgeon's knot is. And it really is a knot apparently used by surgeons, or at least one of them. So, a surgeon's knot, you're going to, I've got 2 sides. So I have my left side and my right side. Left over right and under again. If you've ever been a Girl Guide or in any of those organizations, it's very much like a reef knot. So I've got 2 unders. I'm going to pull it together. And then I'm now going to do right side. I've got a very long piece here, so I'm just going to continue to use this tail and tie it with 1 under. And what I have is this. Okay, basically you want to tie a very tight knot. A double knot will work as long as it's nice and tight. And then you can use your needle to straighten up your beads so that it forms an X or a plus sign or a cross, whichever looks like that. Okay. This is one stitch that the tighter you work, the better it is. However, you want to sort of form the beads up as you go, and I'll talk more about that. So I've got my knot is in between 2 beads right here. I'm going to stitch through a couple of the beads. Now keep in mind I'm left-handed, so if you're right-handed, of course everything catches then in threads, you're just going to bead the opposite of me. Okay, so what I've done, I've created that X. My tail thread is over here, and I've stitched through a couple of beads to get to the other side where my tail thread is. Okay, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this works. So I'm just going to share screen here for a moment. Okay. If you have ever built a house or built anything that has walls, when you go to build a house, you start with a room, right? When you go to build another room, you don't build another 4 walls. You're going to build 3 walls and bump it up against one of the walls that's already in existence. And when you put all that together, you have 2 rooms. If I was to continue, I would add another 3 walls here, and then I'd have 3 rooms. I could also attach 3 walls here, and I would have 3 rooms just in a different configuration. Right angle weave is very similar. So I have 1, 2, 3, these 4 beads are called a unit. Okay, and I can add another 4 beads by including this bead as one of the common beads. And I would simply add 3 beads, sew it into there, and come around. And I can continue to add units of beads by beading off of that common bead. So where we are now, we have created our first unit and tying it in a really tight knot. To continue, we're going to pick up just 3 beads and stitch it off of the common bead that's here. And then we continue just like that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we have our 4 beads in place. Where my thread is coming out is going to be the common bead that's going to be part of the next unit. And to get there, I'm going to pick up 3 beads, and I'm going to stitch into the common bead. Now, notice that my thread is coming out of the bottom. I'm going to stitch into the top. And I'm going to pull through. There is my second unit. It looks a little wonky right now. So I'm going to stitch through all 4 of these beads again. And when I do that, I want to help the beads go into place. So what I do is put my finger, there's the unit right there. I put my finger on it so that as I stitch around, the beads are staying in place. And I only do it 1 bead at a time because I don't want to pull the beads out of alignment. Okay, there's 2. And if they get out of a line, don't worry, we can fix them up later. Okay, so that goes all the way around. And notice, yes, they have come out of alignment. You can just use your needle to help straighten them up. If you tend to be a little OCD like I do, it can bother you like immensely. So, but pull it tight. One of the things that if you pull it tight, pull it in the direction you want your thread to be going. So in this case, it's going down. If I pull it to the side, that's when things are going to get really awkward. So pull it down. I'm going to stitch now through this bead because I want to travel through the beads now and come out this side bead again. Sometimes it can be a little hard to explain right angle weave. Okay, there it is. And then here we are. Any questions so far? We're going to be doing this a lot. So now I have, okay, come on, get into place here. You can use your needle as sort of a third hand, but don't worry about it because as it forms up and we add more units and rows and that, it'll behave. Okay, now I have 2 units. I want to create a total of 8 in this direction. Yes,
You're not actually going through all 4 or all 3 of them. You're just going through 2.
I'm going all the way around plus 2.
Oh, all the way around. Oh,
All the way around plus 2. And some people just do plus 2, but I find it's too floppy. So I like to go all the way around it. Okay. So we're going to pick up another 3. This time my thread is coming out the top. I'm going to go in the bottom. You're going to find that alternates as you go along. It's the nature of the beast. Okay. So those 4 are in place. I'm going to go all the way around these 4 again and holding them in place so I can get them to form up. And as I say, you can use your needle to help coax them into place as well. If you were doing this with Fireline, I would go with a 6 or an 8 pound. Some people like to do it with like really heavy stuff, thinking it'll get it tighter. I find with Fireline, it doesn't really matter. So I've gone all the way around here. Now I'm going to go through 2 to get myself back over to the end. The reason I'm going to an end, because that is where I want my next unit to be. If I wanted it to go into another direction, I would choose another bead. Okay.
So you're sewing in opposite directions each time you add a cluster?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, this time my thread's coming out the bottom. As I say, don't worry about lining it up. It'll eventually behave itself. We're going to pick up another 3 beads. My thread's coming out the bottom. I'm going to go in the top. And again, go through all the beads again. There's my other unit ready to finish.
I don't understand the top and the bottom.
Okay. Okay, so top and bottom as you're looking at it. So let me finish this unit and then let me, okay, bear with me for a moment. This is when it gets a little geometric. So that I have gone around all 4 beads of this unit. And I'm back out to where I had originally started. So looking as I'm looking at it, this is top, this is bottom.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So
Okay.
top of your beadwork, bottom of your beadwork.
Okay.
Okay, and coming out here and coming to the end. And if it gets a little mushy like that, you know, that's part of, sometimes it just wants to be mushy.
So when you say top or bottom, it's the direction that it's going in, correct?
It's the direction of the pieces where you're looking at it.
Yes, but
So for, yes.
if you're
so
coming
right-
out at the bottom,
Yes.
you're going.
So right now I'm coming out the top. I'm coming out the top of this
Right.
bead.
Okay,
yeah.
because, yeah, okay. Okay, okay, gotcha.
1, 2, 3, 5, 4 units now. And again, I'm doing this all the way along till I get to a total of 8.
But you could make this as long as you want, correct?
Oh yes, yes. If you wanted to do a bracelet length,
Yeah.
you could do something like this, which is no different. What I would do here is go this way and add units like that would be a row, then I create another row, as opposed to one long piece like this, which can be a little bit more unwieldy. Okay. And if you happen to go around an extra time, it's no big deal. No big deal. So right now you're just creating a flat mesh of beads. Now the Toho beads are a little more square than Miyuki's, which sometimes helps in this. they seem to have an edge to them that behaves, although in this particular one, it's not behaving so well. Probably because it knows it has an audience. But yeah, you can use your needle and help form things up. Okay. Ready to add another unit. How many people are beading? How many people are beading along with me?
Me,
So I hear 2, 3.
I'm trying.
Okay. Okay. Well, no, that's okay.
It sounds like
I am too. I was trying to be, now I have to unmute stuff to try to find.
Okay. I know all of a sudden you need 3 hands, right?
that's 4.
That's 4. That's wonderful. Okay. The colors of this bead, I really like them. It's going to be part of a bigger project. This is a Toho bead. The color number on it from Bead Effects is 2635F, and it is semi-glazed blue turquoise rainbow. It is really pretty. It's sort of a teal. Actually, it's a sort of a tealy gray. I'm actually planning for classes for next year. I can't believe I'm thinking of next year, but I am. When I'm figuring out classes for Bead Effects, it's like I'm always working 6 months ahead, and it's like, yeah, got to figure this stuff out. Okay, so how many have I got? And you can count your units. See how mine is getting a little mushed up there? Not to worry. You're going to count the open space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As I say, you can straighten it up as best you can. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it.
It's going to be in the back anyway.
It's going to be in the back anyway, so you don't see it. As you embellish it, it will help straighten it up. It's just when it's straight to begin with, it's a little easier to find where you are, that's all.
But that would make life easy.
Yes, yes.
And we all know that life is not easy.
Oh. I'd like to know how they're going to put 2020 into the history books.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
Yes. I think Murphy's Law had a point in this. Whatever could go wrong is going wrong. So.
But you know what? If you really think about it, it's not that bad.
You know, it could be worse.
It's had its issues.
Yeah.
You know what? We're like, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm okay.
Yep.
My kids are okay.
Yep.
Everything's okay. So, like, what more can we want?
You know, it's one of those things, you depend on others quite a bit. And, but I also, a lot of people have risen beyond the occasion.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, there are opportunities, you know, to do different things like Boomerang. One of the things I did was buy this document camera, which is like, okay, if I'm going to continue to teach, which I enjoy teaching, I need to find a way of doing it. So, you know, it's a chance to re-evaluate sort of what is important, what's not important, you know, and sort of figure things like that out.
And I think too, a lot of it has to do with we can either choose to be miserable and poopy.
Yeah.
Or we can choose to slap a smile on our face and look for the bright side.
Yeah.
Because there is one.
You know, I know a lot of people don't want to wear the mask. I know it's a pain. You know, I know it's hot. I know it's just one of those things you can go, you know, prefer to do without. But if it stops if it helps prevent somebody else from getting the virus that you may be carrying, it's a very small price to pay. And you hope that people are also being kind and will think of you as well. I mean, definitely we have seen how things can be negative. So, but I think also too, you know, compared to other, I won't say, I guess like things like the polio epidemics, there wasn't the same amount of instantaneous knowledge. You were waiting for the next newspaper to come out that, you know, may or may not be the most up to date, depending on where you were living and the conditions in which you were living. Okay, so there is, I'll just set that down there. There is my piece. It is 8, I'm trying to get them all in line there. 8 wide. Move this up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's as long as we need to make it. I want to start actually creating another row. So at the end of this last unit, normally I would travel my thread to this piece here. I'm now going, you'll notice that I've traveled my thread only to here because I'm going to create another row on using these as common the beads instead of the end ones. And that's going to give me another whole row there. So if I take a look at it in a printed thing, let's go back to these instructions. Okay, so if I want to add a row, same thing if we go back as if we were up building rooms. We have 4 walls or 4 units there, 4 rooms. I can now go into a different direction and butt 3 pieces up against another wall. Okay, so in the same way I can do the right angle weave. So for example, here is my 3 units. I can create another unit here. There's my common bead, this one. And then I can come over and create another unit. But this time I have actually 2 beads in common. I have this one and this one. So I only actually have to add 2. And again, when I go to build this unit, I have 2 beads in place, this one and this one. I actually only need to add 2. So here is the first example. I'm going to add 3 beads coming off of this side bead. Okay. Here I'm going to do this second unit here in the second row. This bead and this bead are already in place. I only need to add 2 beads. Coming down again. For my last unit, these 2 beads are in place. I only have to add 2 new ones. So that's what we're going to do with this now. So let me grab a drink here. Okay. So this first unit, I have 1 bead in place. I'm just going to pick up 3. As you pick up your beads, you do want to make sure that they're sort of equal. You know, at this point, if you've got something really thick and really thin, try to get them all the same size. Just set those, like for example, here's one. This one's a little wonky. I think you can see just how wonky it is. It's a little crooked. Just discard that. Don't use that one. And if you find one is a little extra wide, just discard that one as well. Or extra thin, just don't use it. Try to use them all roughly the same size, and that will help keep your units more square. Okay, so this time I'm going to pick it up like this. I have 3 beads. My thread is coming out now the top. Okay, so this is up here is now the top, down here is now the bottom. Coming out the top here, I'm going into the bottom of that bead, pull through. There's my unit. I'm going to go around all these beads again, all 4 beads, just to form them up and help them be in place. And again, I'm holding my finger over it to try and help it so it doesn't go completely wonky, which this one is. It's forming up, it's good. And back through here, that's where we started, there. As you put them into place, if it's tight enough, you almost feel it snap in. Okay. So I've been through all the beads. I'm going to travel around and exit down here. And if your beads are a little wonky, just put them into place like that. So through that one. And notice that I'm pulling in the direction I want my thread to be. I'm not pulling it up, I'm not pulling it down. I'm pulling it across. And down. And now I'm going to go into this bottom bead here. Get into place, there. And let me just form these up so that they're sitting properly. You can see it better. Okay, that unit is now added. There we go. Okay, that unit is now added. Come on, behave, behave. There we go. Okay, my thread is coming out of this bead. So it's the sorry?
Side bead.
It's coming out of the, yeah, it's coming out of the way I'm holding, it's coming out of the bottom bead on the right-hand side. Okay, so my next unit already has 2 beads in place. It's got this bead that we've just added and this bead, which is what we added in the previous row. So all I need to do is add 2 beads. 2 beads are in place, we add 2 new ones. However, I need to go through this bead first.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm joining now. One unit is now joined to the other unit, this to this, and I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and I'm going to stitch into here. So that will make my 4 bead unit. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to pull through. There is my unit. Okay, I'm going to stitch around all 4 of those beads again. Oh, I heard that.
Sorry.
That's okay. How can I help?
No, I just was ambitious and I went ahead and of course I did it wrong.
That's okay. It's easily taken apart.
Yeah, so I just finished taking it apart and now I'm playing catch up.
That's okay. You're doing the frog stitch. Rib it out, rib it out. You haven't heard that one before? That's the frog stitch. Rib it out, rib it out.
I like that.
Good. We all become very proficient in the frog stitch.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so in interest of time, because these classes, it is rushed. Being it's an hour class, it is very rushed. So there is that second unit added. Okay. My next unit, again, I got 2 beads in place, this one and this one. I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to join this unit to this unit by going through that bead. And then through all 4 of these beads and travel down to the bottom here. Okay, so there's the unit. I'm going to travel back down to bottom here.
So you come, sorry, when you're
Yeah.
attaching, you go around, you add 2.
Yep.
Go through 2, and then you add 2 more.
It depends where your thread is.
It's at the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah. So for example, here my thread is at the bottom
No, it's on
and
the other side.
it's facing toward the beadwork. So to join this unit to this unit, like these 2 beads here, I
Yeah.
need to go through this bead first. So it's understanding of where you want to go and then how do you get there.
Okay, I gotcha. Oh,
Okay.
I'm such a donkey. I knew that.
If my thread was coming out on the other side of the beadwork and not, or away from the beadwork, then I would be picking up 2 beads before going into the other unit.
That's okay. So I need to, okay, so I'm going into the other unit. I have to get 2. Okay.
These are good questions. Any other questions? Question about the Fireline thread. Fireline tends to do whatever it pleases, including tangle. What I find that tangles the most on Fireline thread is the tail. The tail wraps around itself very, very easily, whereas I find thread doesn't as much. But yeah, Fireline, the tail of the thread tangles like crazy. Some people do use beeswax to put it on. They say it helps a little bit. I haven't noticed that much. It all depends on the day and how cooperative Fireline is going to be.
Okay, I've got you now. Okay, the lights just came on.
That's okay. That's all right.
Took a while, but they finally did.
That's okay. It's not a race. Okay, so as I say, in the interest of time, so I have gone, I'm pretty well halfway through this row. I would continue down and again add another row and build up. So this piece of beadwork is 8 units down, 8 units in length and 3 units wide. Okay, and what you would get is this. So in interest of time, I'm going to swap out to another piece. So if it's easier at this point just to watch me, go ahead and you'll be able to work on that on your own. So I'm going to do a Vanna white here and just, there's another piece. Okay, so this is no different than this, except it looks a whole lot neater. Okay, so the same, we have 8 units and 3 units wide. I just have a couple more to finish. So let me just pull out a couple of extra beads here. And see where I am. My thread is coming out away from the beadwork. So at this point, I would pick up 2 beads going in this direction and stitch into this bead, because this is the other common bead for this particular unit. This is a very, oops, let's pull it out of my hand. This is a pretty bead color too. This is, it's a little hard to tell. It's actually very purpley and blue. This is Raku Plum Blue Iris Matte. It is a very pretty.
Short color.
It is a very pretty. A lot of highlights of purple and teal blue. So Raku Plum Blue Iris Matte. Okay, I'm going to go through all this again.
Is the purpose for using the larger bead on the bottom is because the hole is bigger because you have to go through it more times?
It's, no, you could do this with small beads. It would just take you forever.
Okay.
That's all. So in the interest of this particular one, I just chose to use bigger beads.
Could you
But
hold it up a little bit higher so I, there. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
How did you get your side beads to stick out so well?
Pulling it tight and just sort of as I go, some beads just behave better than others. This one worked very well. I don't think it's a matter of the finish, but as I pull it, I am putting my fingers on it just to help keep it in place, and that does help.
Okay.
Okay, going through here. Okay, so my last unit is this corner one here. My thread is facing the beadwork, which means I need to attach this bead to this bead, okay, to join those 2 units. So I'm going to go through there. I have 2 beads in place. I'm going to pick up 2 beads and go into this bead, and that creates my 4 bead unit, like that. And then I'll go through all of these again. And this is where I'm holding it. See, if I sort of pulled and making sure that you're pulling in the right direction. So I want my thread is going up. If I pull it to the side, one way or another, it is going to mess up the geometry of it. It catches on everything. There we go.
So having gone through it as many times as we have, there is no need to reinforce it any further.
Not really, no, because you're going to be stitching through these same beads as you add the embellishment as well.
Okay.
And the embellishment will actually help stiffen it up as well, because you're taking it from a different angle now. Okay.
Why did we leave such big long tail?
Because we're going to use that tail to create, depending on where we're ending up, we're going to be using the tail to create our loop of beads for the veil.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. So there is my base. I'm just going to put these other beads away. Okay, and I'm going to pull out, I've got some fire polish beads here. Size 15s, 15s being very small. And I just want to double check that my needle will work. Yes, they will. Okay. And I don't need many size 11s. I won't need that until I do the bail, so I'll just leave them there. Okay, so I'm going to, yeah, I'll do it this way. So let's move ahead a little bit. I know many of you're still working on the base. So my thread is actually coming out one of the side units. It's facing going down. I want to place a bead. We're going to add embellishment here so that the bead sits over the open space of this unit. So to do that, I'm going to pick up a size 15, my crystal bead, and another 15. Okay, my thread's coming out of this unit. I'm going down. I'm going to go into this bead, that's what, right across from the top down. So I am actually adding a bead that is going kitty corner or diagonally across the unit. Come on, behave, behave. Here we go, like that. A little hard to tell, it's a little on the dark side. I want to now travel through my base beads to get into the next place. So what I can do is, see this bead right here, the bottom of the bead unit? I'm going to travel through there. So you can travel through all of these base beads to get to where you need to go. And I'm trying not to turn it around. If you find you need to sort of turn it and every which way. So I've traveled down to the next unit on the side bead. My thread is coming down. I'm going to pick up my embellishment again and go across the unit and down the other side one.
So do you always come out and go down on the same?
Yes. Yeah, that allows the diagonal.
Okay.
If you went sort of, if it was all in one level, it would sit differently. But this way it sits across the diagonal, sitting in that open space in the middle of the unit. And then what I'm doing is traveling through the beads to get my needle in place for at the next unit.
But why can't you go from, you're going from what, left to right?
Yeah.
Why can't you go right to left?
You can, your beads will sit the opposite way.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and that could be your choice. Okay, so cutting across the unit, going down. So for example, I'm coming out there. Let's see what would happen. No, I still need to get down to this unit. I could come here and work this one. But if I'm trying to go in a row, because our embellishment is going to go around the edge like this, as opposed to in the middle. So I'm just making sure that my beads are all along the edge, and that's why I need to travel. I didn't realize this would show up quite so dark on this. isn't. Okay, I forgot to go down the other bead. So, and this is, it's as easy as this. Just if you find you've made a mistake, just pull it back. I'm going to see if I can lighten this a little bit. There, I think you can maybe see it better. Yeah, so I've come out the side there, or the middle. I've got to go down one of the side beads. See, I know that French, the French stitch as well. I rip it out all the time. Okay, get my needle in place. Oops. So the reason I use the size 15s, that's just to use a little bit of color. You don't need to. You could simply eliminate the 15s and put only a bead across diagonally. But I do it just to add a little bit of flash there. And you could also experiment with different shaped beads. They don't have to be round. There are sort of teardrop shaped beads that you could try. They're going to sit a little differently, but it's only beads.
Did we do the heart with you, Pamela?
The heart, yes, that was last week's, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll show you what I did.
Oh, good.
But just hang on, let me finish this here.
Okay. Who am I speaking with? And I'll just,
Vera, but let me just, I have to turn the video on, but let me just go run and get them.
okay. Okay. I've got a comment here about layered crawl. Cubic right angle weave is sort of the next step from right angle weave. If you can imagine doing this dimensionally, it makes a huge, it's just a step up. Now, cubic right angle weave is a little bit more involved, but not a whole lot. But yes, there's so much you can do with cubic right angle weave as well. Okay, so I've got my first row done. And my thread is coming out sort of that middle, the up and down unit here. I'm now ready. This is my tail thread, so I'll just cover that up. I'm ready to add one here. My thread is already on a downswing, so all I need to do is pick up my embellishment and go across. So this is one where you don't have to travel through so many beads. Oops, oh, that fell out of my hands there. And again, it's already going in a downward piece, so I'm just going to add my other, got this tail thread in the way. Coming across, there's the quarter. Okay. Now I'm just going to turn my beading work around so that I am not stitching backwards or upside down. So at this point, at some point, you're going to have to reorient yourself as to, ow, Indy. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. He just came over and chomped on my ear. Okay, so at this point, I need to sort of travel through beads and reorient myself so that I am coming out. Okay, so I'm just going to, so where I am is here. I'm coming out that top bead. Let me see if I can focus this a little bit better. There. So I need to come around so I can come out this bead. And I'm going to, I want to come out at the bottom so that I can continue going down. So I'm just going to travel through the beads. And at this point, you can flip it over and just so you could see the beads that you're traveling through. No, not now. Go on.
Okay, embellishment, are you going to fill the whole thing or just around the...
Nope, just around the edge.
Okay.
If you wanted to, you could fill the whole thing. So, and that would give you a very different
Look.
a very different look. But this is where you get to be a designer and not follow what I'm doing, follow what you like. Okay, so I've traveled through the base beads and I've come out here. So I'm ready to continue going down.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to continue exactly what I've done before and cut across the unit diagonally. And adding the embellishment as I go.
If you had to add a piece of thread,
Yes?
how would you go about finishing and adding?
What I would do is tie on, a couple things you can do. You can tie a thread onto your existing thread, or what you can do is tie on a new thread, and I would tie it on one of the threads coming out of a diagonal here inside. So I would go under where I am here, under that thread, and tie on the thread there.
When you say tie on, that's with the half hitch?
You can use a half hitch or just an overhand knot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you can weave your working thread, your new working thread around to where you are, and then tie in all of the threads all at once.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so if you were to tie it onto your existing thread,
Yeah.
what kind of knot would you use?
I would use, again, an overhand knot.
Okay.
Slide the knot down to the beadwork as best I can. At that point, I would probably weave in my old working thread and bury it, tie it off with a couple of half hitches and trim, and then put my needle onto the new working thread and continue.
Okay.
Okay? So
Yep.
I'll just zoom out a little bit. My hands were traveling out of the frame there. Okay, so okay. almost coming to the bottom of this outside piece again. Oops, first travel. So how's everyone doing? I'm not hearing swearing or anything hitting the wall, so
Because we're on mute.
you're on mute. Okay, I see.
I was thinking the same thing.
Mute solves so many problems, doesn't it? Okay. Okay. So here I've got all the way around, I've got one more in the middle here. So I'm going to add in here just exactly what I've been doing before. And I guess I didn't need quite so much thread. I'm one of these people, I hate adding thread. So I tend to work with longer pieces than maybe need. There we go. Okay. So there is the pendant. And zoom, focus that. Sometimes when it's shiny, the camera doesn't know what to focus on. So that's complete. However, we need something to hang it from. So now to create the bail, I'm going to use my size 11 beads and create a circle just like this one. So to get there, I'm going to travel through the back of these beads and come out. Where is my thread coming out? My thread is currently coming out of one of the side ones here. I'm just going to cut across into this unit, this bead, and I can pick up a number of beads. Just straighten that out. I like to pick up usually an odd number, 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 7 so beads. So one, and I'm picking up the size 11 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I tend to pick up 7 beads because if you pick up even numbers, they can sort of sit side by side. So to add the bail, my thread is coming out one of these this middle bead here. My thread's coming out the bottom of the bead. I'm going to stitch into the top so that I can create a circle around that unit or bead just like that. And because this is a tension point, I'm going to go through these beads about 3 times. So that was one, and you don't have to do it all, all beads at once. It's much easier if you don't. Okay, one more, and attaching it to the base here. So that's 2. And if I go through it again, it's just going to help it firm up a little bit, so it's not quite so floppy. Come on, get in there. There we go. Sometimes you have to talk to the beads.
Sorry, Pamela, how wide have you made it?
I have made this a total of 3 units.
3 units, okay.
Yeah, so looking at the back here, I've got 1, 2, 3.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and 8 units down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And of course, you can change that. Instead of 3 by 8, you might want to do it 6 by 10. Okay, so I've been through the bail now 3 times. Everything else is in place. It's where I want it to be. I can now start burying my thread. To bury thread, of course, you're not going to just cut it because there's nothing securing it. So I'm going to just travel through a couple of beads, keeping my right angle weave in place. So in other words, I'm not stitching through beads where I would see the thread. Okay, so I'm coming out, for example, this bead, I'm going to do a right angle, either left turn or right turn, into another bead. So I'm going to go into this bottom bead. And at this point, between these beads, these two here, is a thread. And I'm going to do a half hitch knot by going under the thread. And sometimes you have to sort of dig for it a little bit. You know it's there, you just can't find it. Okay, come on. Pull your needle under the thread like that. Pull through. And before that loop slips away, go through that loop. That's a half hitch knot. And that creates a knot on the thread, holding that in place. So I can then change direction. Let's, again, keeping in mind either turning left or turning right. And I'm going to do this again. Go through that loop. And this time I'm going to travel so that my thread is somewhere in the midst here, as opposed to the edge. I don't like to cut it on the edge because if you don't get a clean cut, you've got this little thread that is just sitting there and you can never totally get it cut close. Okay, so come through here. Okay, so I'm going to go under the thread here. And you're just going through the thread in the base. You don't have to catch the other thread. Okay, so pull under that thread. And again, before that knot, the loop completely disappears, just go under the loop. So that has now 3 different knots in place. I don't cut my thread where the knot is, simply because if it does undo a little bit, I don't want that knot to undo. So I've just traveled over through a couple of beads. At this point, I can go ahead and trim. Trim as close as you can. You can use a thread burner or anything like that. So that is done. I just need to do the same thing with the tail thread, and I did not need a tail thread this big. Okay, so keep in mind we started with a knot, so I'm not as worried about that half hitch. So I'm just threading the tail thread here. And I'm just going to do a final knot somewhere on the inside of the beadwork here, under this thread. And burying the thread just a little bit before I do a cut. Okay, that finishes the pendant. So how do you make this your own design? Go ahead and change the size. You could certainly do a bigger, do more beads in a smaller bead if you want, and then play with embellishment that way. change your bead style of what what you can embellish it with. Certainly a brighter color or a more contrasting color than what I've done here. So lots of things that you can do to make it your own. And of course, experiment, guys, it's only beads. So any questions about this product at all? Everyone is so, okay, let me change my face. Susan, let me spotlight you so we can see it. That looks wonderful. Good.
Very good.
Yes. So now you'll be all set to start doing the embellishment.
Struggled with the base of it, but we'll see about the other part. And actually, I'm happy with it like this. It may end up being like this. I don't know. We'll see how it
Yeah, no, that's great. It's great. There's so much you can do with right angle weave. So much. I do have other Zoom bead workshops coming up using seed beads. Joanna will be adding them. However, for the next 3 Mondays, what I've got planned, let me just switch to the other camera here so you can see better. So this is going to be what's called the Monday after Thanksgiving. Let me move that out of the way. I call this Fire and Ice. Okay, so it is a derivative of what we're doing here, except this is going to be a 2-needle right angle weave. And it's using, let me spotlight this. It's actually using, remove spotlight and spotlight myself. Add spotlight, there we go. Okay, so you can use any kind of 6mm bead, whether you're using fire polish. These two are fire polish. This is actually a stone bead, which worked up really well. And then this pieces across the way. I've used delicate beads, but you can just use regular size 11 beads. So you can also make this reversible. So for example, this black one, I've got gold on one side and silver on the other.
On the other side.
Yeah, so you can actually do, so you can do 2 colors.
Reversible.
Pardon?
Reversible.
You can do it reversible, exactly. Okay, so that is the Monday after, and that's called Fire and Ice. Then we're going to learn another one, and this is easier than it looks. Again, it can be reversible. This is called Flat Spiral, and there's a lot you can do with it. It is using the center are size 6 beads. The outside are 4mm beads with seed beads. And again, you can make it reversible or not, depending on what you're using. This is fire polish. This is Swarovski pearls. You've got same stitch, different materials, 2 very different looks. Okay, and then the third one, just to get us into the holiday season, we're going to learn netting. And this is snowflakes, obviously. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a snowflake like this. This is using size 6 beads, and it can be any kind of bead. Czech beads, Japanese, it does not matter. If you don't have size 6 and have only size 8, go ahead and use the 8s. It'll just be proportionally smaller. What's neat about this is that the different size beads will give you different size snowflakes. So you create a whole flurry.
3 mm pearl?
I'm sorry?
3 mm pearl?
I'm not understanding you.
3 mm pearl.
You could use pearls if you want, yeah. Yeah, it all depends on your budget. So if you wanted to do something in pearls, you know, I've never
I don't
done.
have 6 mm, so 6 mm beads. So I want to know whether 3 mm pearl is big enough for
For the middle?
6 mm, right?
For which? For this?
Yeah.
I would use beads. I would just use size 6 beads, not 6mm, just size 6 beads. These are regular seed beads.
Sorry, 3 mm pearl.
You could try. I'm not sure how it'll look, but it should work.
Okay.
Just FYI, it takes a lot. Takes a lot of 3mm pearls.
These aren't posted on Zoom yet, are they, Pamela?
They're not. Joanna said she's going to get them up as quickly as possible.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
so
those-
much.
You are quite welcome. And if you have any questions about anything I'm doing, I've got a couple of other classes coming up that aren't posted yet. That'll be held on Fridays during the day that are more general jewelry stuff as opposed to seed beading. You can always contact me. I think Joanne is going to include my contact information. Pamela Kearns 2019 @gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you. I really would.
Can I show you my heart earrings?
I'm sorry?
My hearts, Vera.
Oh, yes. Vera, let me show me your replace spotlight. Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, I
Very
made them
nice.
into earrings.
That's great.
Very nice.
And there's
Very
this one
cool.
and this one. It took a bit to get them to hang the right way, but because I wanted them opposite, right?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. They
Wow.
look great. Congratulations.
I was surprised, but it worked.
No, it's good.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. What's nice about seed beading is that there are so many ways you can make it your own. My goal with the Boomerang classes here is just to show you a technique and show you how you can use it. And then by all means, make it your own by experimenting. And so I will leave you. It is almost 8 o'clock, so I thank you for sticking around with me. And I'll hope to see you next week. Does anyone have any questions before we finish? We're good? Okay.
Thank you, Pamela.
I'll sign off.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye-bye.
Bye.